say someone has walls up, what comes to mind? Most of you probably think of someone who is emotionally distant, they don't trust, and they isolate. But what if we've only experienced the extreme negative of walls? Lisa TerKeurst, in her book, Good Boundaries and Goodbye, says that boundaries are appropriate walls with gates that we open to the people that are responsible to the access that we give them. And today, we're going to be checking your walls and your gates. I mean, metaphorically speaking. So, go grab your favorite drink, pull up a chair, and let's get started. Welcome. I'm Dr. Tracy Dickens, a psychologist. If this is your first time here, welcome. I'm so glad you found my channel. The other day, I had a client share with me his anger with his cousin. The cousin had borrowed money from my client and had failed to return the money in the timeline that he said he was going to return it. And now my client didn't have the money to pay his bills. He loaned money to this cousin before, and this happened the last time, and he was so upset, and he thought after their last argument, his cousin would never do it again. And we're getting into what the topic is today, talking about boundaries. So before I tell you how I helped my client, I want to make sure that we're on the same page about the purpose of a wall. So we're going to travel back in time and look at a kingdom and kingdom walls. In biblical times, every kingdom had a wall, and that wall always had a watchtower, which was the tallest part of the wall. And it always had gates that could open, and close based on who was approaching the kingdom. The people in the watchtowers knew the questions to ask the people that approached, and they were always ready to say yes or no at appropriate times. Their yes or their no wasn't based on feeling, it was based on what was needed for the kingdom. For example, if somebody was coming bringing provision for the people within the kingdom, well, then the gates would open. But if they saw someone approaching who looks like maybe they were an enemy of the kingdom, then the gates would close. So the important take-home message about the wall and the gates is that the gates have to open and the gates have to close. If you keep your gates closed all the time, you have a rigid boundary. Rigid boundaries appear like canceling people when you're upset, avoiding people, being emotionally distant, avoiding vulnerability, saying no all the time. When you have a rigid boundary, it prevents you from having the relationships that you need to be the best you. Now, on the other hand, you could have a kingdom where you leave your gates open all the time. You just let people come in and come out, just having a good old fun time. You never say no. You overshare information about the kingdom. Oh yeah, that's where the king is hanging out. You should go hang out with him. There's just no boundary. You're emotionally enmeshed. Whatever somebody else feels, you take on that feeling yourself. People that have porous boundaries often are people pleasers. They have a paralyzing fear of rejection, and they accept mistreatment. So that gate for your kingdom, it needs to open and it needs to close. And we need to learn how to exercise that open and close at appropriate times, because that's how you get healthy boundaries. People with healthy boundaries, they look like people who know what they value. They are able to say no when they really want to say no. They know they need to say no. They value their own opinion. And when someone says no to them, they don't take it personal, because they understand the importance of having healthy boundaries. And they just see that person as protecting the relationship that they have. And they share information at appropriate times with people that have earned the right to that information. The further away we move from healthy boundaries, you find yourself in situations like my client that I mentioned earlier. He had given his cousin access that he had shown historically that he was not responsible. I mean, he hadn't shown any signs since that original time when he didn't pay him back that he was different, that he had changed. But yet my client gave him access to his money and then found himself unable to pay his bills. What kind of boundaries do you think he has? Rigid, porous, healthy? If you said porous, you're correct. And that's one of the things we were working on in therapy, helping him have healthy gates to his walls. So how do you start having healthy gates to your walls? Well, honestly, it starts with knowing your values and knowing your capacity. Okay, what does that mean? Capacity. For example, there's 24 hours in a day. So I've got to sleep, I've got to eat, I got to work, I got to take care of the kids if I have kids, I have to drive from here to there. So I only have a finite amount of time in my day. So if I add something to that schedule, I've got to consider, okay, do I actually have the capacity? Do I have the time capacity to add this new thing into it? Because if I don't, then guess what? I'm going to create chaos and frustration and resentment, even if it's something great and good and fabulous. If I don't have the time in my schedule, it's going to cause problems. And so it really is going, okay, right now in this season of my life, what is my time capacity? What are my financial capacities? What are my capacities when it comes to intimacy, to emotional availability, to friendship and intimacy and screen time, and being very honest, accepting the truth about yourself? Because sometimes you're going to have to say no to things that are wonderful and great. But if you say yes to that and you don't have the capacity, trust me, you will ultimately end up stressed, resentful, bitter, just not being the best you. I will put a list down below of all the areas that it's really good to assess each season to see, okay, where is my capacity in this? Am I low, high, middle range? So when things come up, you can take a step back and determine, is this a time I open my gate, close my gate? What should I be doing here? Once you've determined what your capacity is, now you have to determine who should you be letting into your kingdom? Who are you granting access to your kingdom? You need to be wise about that. Wise looks something like this. When you have a misunderstanding with a friend, do you check yourself first and see, okay, is this my thing? Because we all have insecurities and we all have life experiences that we filter our current day experiences through. Have I told them what I need and expect? Have I said it clearly? Have I held to the consequences or whatever boundaries I've set for myself in the relationship? And sometimes we don't really know, like, what is wisdom, what is wise. And so as a Christian, I would say, go to Proverbs. Proverbs is the book of wisdom. Proverbs will say a person who's wise is slow to anger. They will say that a person who is wise will listen first and speak second. So if you want to know if you're giving access to someone who's wise or foolish, or if you are that person who's being foolish, look in Proverbs. And it also helps to have friends that you look at their life and you're like, man, they just seem to manage their relationships well. Ask them questions. Ask them, how do they do it? What do they say? How do they handle conflicts? Have wise people in your life that you can go to and ask them questions and learn from them. Here's the interesting thing. Most of us have kind of got this access thing down in other areas of our lives. For example, how many of you have a password to your bank account? I probably bet everyone out there said, I do. Okay, now, would you put that password and your bank account number on Instagram or Facebook? No, you wouldn't. Why? Because you know, someone would get that information and would absolutely blow through the money in your checking account. And you have a finite amount of money in that checking account. You have a capacity in that checking account that does not allow for someone who's going to be irresponsible to blow through all that money. So we know how to do this in various areas of our lives, but sometimes we just don't do it in our relationships. So my challenge is to look at the capacity and really determine with wisdom, and like I said, you already have it, just extending it to your relationships, and you'll see that you have a lot less chaos and a lot less frustration in your life. If you are not sure if you should be opening your gates, ask someone. If you have questions or doubts, ask someone. Take the extra time, ask questions, observe. Don't be in a rush to just open your gates because you feel pressure to do so. You are worth the extra steps. Look in the description below to see questions and areas that you can assess to see where your capacities are and how to determine access and foolishness and wisdom. And let me know down below what resonated with you in this video. And remember This is one video in a series, and I hope that you subscribe to this video so you can come back and see the other videos, and push the like, thumbs up, so this video can reach more people in YouTube. I truly appreciate you spending your time with me today, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. And until next time, choose joy. Bye. Through the gate. I don't know how that show up on a thumbnail.
Scroll down, let me squat down just a little bit more. A little bit more. Because right now I see your face is here instead of down there.